Pagoo Chapter 14. Among the crabs, a shy masked lady. After the hermits had stolen Pagoo's lunch, they barged on into his secret cave. Scuffling started, kept on and on. When all was quiet again, Pagoo looked in upon the disaster. The hermit gang had departed, but the foliage of his grotto was torn and scattered. Pagoo cared little about this, but his hidden treasure, his shells, robbed. The best ones had vanished. Only cracked and battle-worn shanties had been left, old wrecks tossed away by the raiders as junk. Disgusted, Pagoo looked them all over, but found none as good as his own wide-door periwinkle. Pagoo's red feelers lashed in rage, but old pal grunted, "Simmer down, nature will fix things," and sure enough, with the very next bolt, the trouble was all neatly fixed. Pagoo's large claw had grown larger, so that his right hand became a very good door. It was not a real door, of course, like that of many sea snails. A snail's door, or operculum, is a horny shield grown to fit its doorway. As the snail hauls itself into its shell, the operculum comes last on the tip of the foot. It seals the opening against almost anything except perhaps the enemy. Compared to this front door, Pagoo's hand door did not have such a snug fit. A peek hole remained, to be covered by his small left claw. Yet even with the peek hole open, his right glove now saved Pagoo from meddlesome bullies. Through the peek hole under his hand door, Pagoo could watch his crab relations. Many tribes of them lived in the tide pool town. The deepest places held swimming crabs, whose two rear feet had widened into swim fins. Near shore, most crabs are not swimmers, but walkers, like Pagoo. Some shore crabs are at home in water or on land. Once, when the tide had ebbed and the pool was calm, Pagoo walked his shell close to the edge of land. He saw shore crabs in the water clearly, but when they broke through the surface window, they vanished for a moment. Then the shattered window wobbled itself together, and he saw them on water, above water on the rocks. It was as though you looked into an aquarium, only backwards. Crab on land seemed all wiggly to Pagoo under water. Sometimes they were only shadows, like sand tossed along by the wind on the beach. Some shore crabs are large, with heavy claws of great gripping power. If one of these crabs could be the size of a strong man in a circus, he could crunch and steal railroad tracks like sticks of candy, and rip open a battleship's anchor chain like picking beans. No wonder little Pagoo kept inside his shell when these came by. He saw small rock crabs who also have pincers, their bodies flat and thin, enough to crawl into cracks or under rocks. Every crab seemed to fit his living space so that he could hide easily. But certain crabs put on masks to hide from their enemies. When old, they are huge, wear thick armor, and do not have to hide. But while younger, they wear masks and seem to disappear, as Pagoo found out. One day, Pagoo walked his shell into the open towards a garden of swaying weeds. He was almost past when a clump of the weeds raised up at a crazy angle, and under it somewhere he saw the beady eyes of a crab. A crab hiding in weeds was only natural, but these seaweeds appeared to be growing right out of the crab's back. She was a shy lady crab with legs that looked much too long and lumpy, too. And she certainly was having a bit of trouble with them. Aha! Pagoo knew what was going on. Rather, what was coming off. This lady was molting. He watched as things began to happen along her back. Its outer layer came loose and tilted up, weeds growing on the crust of all of it. The lady gave a quick, many-legged kick and sent her hanging garden up and away for tides to play with. No doubt about it, this timid crab cousin with her soft new body and spidery legs now had nothing at all to hide her. She scuttled among the curling rockweeds and slender eelgrass. Exploring with claws and feelers, she worked over the holdfast bases of several plants. At last, finding one to her pleasure, she pried it up and cut it. Ready for transplanting. Her mouth furnished a special glue, which now she used to paste the plant hold fast to the knobby new covering on her back. She needed several rear legs, both claws, and one feeler to do this trick, but at last she got it fastened. The seaweed glued tightly to her back would continue to grow gaily. This decorator crab became a masked lady. She kept on decorating herself. As Pagoo watched, she used several kinds of seaweed, even strands of eelgrass. Every now and again, she pulled up more feathery growth, pasting it over joints in her long leg. The decorator didn't care that these bizomes were on her elbow, ate sea soup, just so they grew lacy veils to hide her gangling legs and arms. Pagoo passed Snail Cousin's Rock, climbed Mussel Ridge, took a long and shuddery look at pale rope-like things waving in deep hole, and skittered back again. Where was the lady decorator? He stared hard at a wavy garden of weeds, but it wasn't her garden. He backed into other weeds, hoping to find her, but ready to run in case he did touch her again and make her feel insulted. The weeds seemed to be empty. All this time, close by under the rocks, waving fronds, the lady was watching him. In the open tide pool, she was quite well hidden. Pagoo paused among rounded boulders. Green rock crabs with yellow lines across their backs were hunting bits of food in the algae. They ate busily, using one claw, then the other, but always with eyes alert to any change in scenery. They ran sideways up a rock, slipped through the surface window without breaking it, and continued to poke for food on the boulders above. The rock crab stared down at Pagoo, and he stared up till a brisk wave shattered the window. One by one, some busy diners slipped down, slid their eyes through the foam, and peered below. Yes, Pagoo's fat little shell still rocked in the undertow on the tide pool floor like a cradle rocking in a nursery. For the rock crab, it is good to know that the old tide pool home was still there, that the last wave hadn't washed it away, and for Pagoo it was comfortable to be rocking gently in the swinging sea. Pagoo, Chapter 14.